What are the theories that folks from the business community have about why Trump is doing this? Doug said that there's no explanation, there's no rationale. Trump hasn't articulated a goal, and without a goal, there's no way of knowing when it's been achieved, to know when it will end. Why do business people think he's doing this?
Well, I think it depends on the business person, right? But there's one theory that has been bouncing around now for some time, which has to do with this idea of a Mar-a-Lago Accord, right? So a purposeful devaluing of the dollar. Mm-hmm. And so if you squint at it, it's kind of like looking at a pile of dirt and trying to see a Picasso. So the strategy there would be that, you impose steep tariffs. The dollar is devalued in trade negotiations. That makes American exports more competitive. And you also squeeze China because China holds a lot of debt. As the dollar becomes cheaper, you're exerting pressure on China. Now, I don't think that would work at all. Very few economists think it would work. And, what are the side effects or the grave knock-on effects? You have huge inflation for American consumers. You have a declining dollar. You have declining American influence within the broader global economy. So it's just a giant misplaced bet. But if you try to understand an underlying rationale, that might be one guess. I don't think it's a good strategy, but it's one way of looking at it.
I want to know some of these people in the business community who see a pile of dirt and see a Picasso, because I see a pile of horse manure that they think is dirt. I mean, It is a pile of manure. We've been staring at it for 9 years from a political lens. And I guess what I want to press you on is, here's what's going to happen. There's no reason to think that you're wrong or that Doug is wrong, right? The economy does have a psychological aspect to it, but it clearly has physics to it as well. And the tariffs have tripped both wires, the psychology of the economy and the physics of the economy. The politics, the gravitational pull, the politics is that Republicans will lose both chambers. Why does Trump want that?
Does he believe that? I guess. I don't know. This is all, we get into the psycho.
Ted Cruz clearly believes it.
We get into psychoanalyst table.
Well, let me show you where his coalition is.
Sure.
Here's David Portnoy.
This one's the only one that I can think of that's like man-made. Like the stock market crashes in 9/11. Yes. Stock market crashed COVID. Yes. But this is like a decision that one guy made that crashed the whole stock market. That's why we're calling it Orange Monday, not Black Monday. I saw Howard Lutnick being like, we're going to live in a world where there's an army of Americans screwing in little things into iPhones. Like what? What American's going to take that job? So to me, this is all about negotiating the tariff rates. It's all about getting equal trade, fair trade, which everybody wants. And it's a noble thing that Trump's trying to get done. But he can't really have leverage negotiating these deals. If the stock market is going to crash, everyone's going to join, what's he call it, the panicking party, and he has to reverse course. So you see, he's kind of like stuck.
See?
Yeah, what I see a lot from Dave Portnoy and from the Mar-a-Lago Accord crowd, I listened to a long podcast about that to try to understand it the other day, is what I would call cope. Cope is the word that's happening, because these guys just refuse to believe the reality that's in front of their eyes, which is that they elected a moron who bankrupted a casino as president, and now he's doing to the country what he did to several casinos. That is what is happening here. There's not any complex plan in place. There's not a 4D chess negotiation happening to rebalance trade between us and Europe. There's not, none of that is, they're not devaluing the dollar to pay down the debt. None of that is part of the plan. This is a mad king who doesn't know what he's doing, who loves the word tariff, and who is, stubborn, and who is going to ride or die on this. Maybe one day he'll change his mind and decide, I can declare victory because I have a cult of 33% of supporters that'll go along with it, and I'm annoyed with rich people calling me and complaining. That might happen someday, but that won't be because it was part of a broader plan that was in place.
Disruption is the point, though, right? The point is not, there's one way of looking at strategy, that he's doing A to get B to get C. He just wants to disrupt everything. And bring people to the table on bended knee, right? So Scott Bessent yesterday was saying that upwards of 50, 70 countries were now calling the White House.
What proof is that? Did any countries confirm that? I heard that there are at least a few countries that don't want to get on the phone with him. They don't trust him.
I think that is probably completely right. And the reason why is A, they don't trust him, and B, their domestic constituents really don't like him and don't want to make a deal with this president. I mean, the interview with Larry Kudlow and Scott Bessent yesterday I thought was so illuminating, because you had someone who was from Trump 1, Larry Kudlow, part of Trump, the first Trump administration, looking in the eye of Trump 2, Scott Bessent, and just explaining kind of a basic reality of why the goal of a zero trade deficit for the likes of the United States, which is a huge economy, on its face is not a worthy goal. And Bessent's answer was completely incoherent. And I think that's all you really need to know.
Here's the other thing is, if the negotiations were happening, like, let's even give them the best case scenario. Let's say that Scott Bessent and Trump negotiate 15 deals with Israel and Turkey and a handful of other countries. Like, we still, like, the China tariffs are going the wrong direction. He's moving them up to 104%. And, like, even if they cut 12 deals, we still would have a tariff increase that would be beyond anything that happened in Trump 1.0, anything that any of the small tariffs that Biden did, any imaginable tariffs. So that wouldn't, it might help the stock market for a day or two, but it would not help, like, these long-term systemic problems that are being created. And I was pretty struck by Doug Holtz-Eakin. I don't know if all of the viewers caught this, but in a normal Republican presidency, Doug would have Kevin Hassett's job or Scott Bessent's job. And for him just to bluntly say, we're headed towards a recession and probably stagflation, like, that's not coming from somebody, in our camp.
No, I know. I mean, Doug, let me bring it back to you.
No, that's true. No, can I say just 3 things before, just observations? Number one,
of course.
he will never admit he's wrong.
We got 2 hours.
Let's be very clear. Very clear. He is not going to say he made a mistake. He's not going to do a U-turn. Anyone who's trying to talk him into that is wasting their time. Number 2, he did in his first term levy steel tariffs that were very damaging and didn't work, and he steadily hollowed them out. He exempted Canada, he exempted Mexico, he exempted Germany, exempted Brazil. He exempted all the major sources of steel for the United States. So they were for show by the end. He is capable of doing that and calling it negotiation. So keep an eye on what he does. And the one thing that happened last week that I really thought was important was he did not go forward with any genuinely additional tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Those tariffs would rip the North American economy apart at tremendous cost to all of us. There's no benefit to them. He didn't do it. Someone got to him. So there's these little contradictions to the overall rhetoric where, he does respond to pressure, and we'll see how it plays out.